All right, so for today's explainer, we're doing something, well, a little different. We've managed to get our hands on this really fascinating collection of digital files. Think of it like a data dump, but from the future. Every single file is dated December 2025, and our job today is to try and piece it all together and see what kind of story it tells. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could actually read tomorrow's news, but from next year? That's pretty much what we have in front of us. A scattered, fragmented peek into a world that, for us, is still a year away. We're going to be like digital archeologists, trying to reconstruct a single moment in time. So yeah, that's the mission. This isn't about predicting the future, not at all. It's about investigating the data we have. We've got articles, we've got social media data, and one very dense technical report. So what did the world look and feel like in the last couple of weeks of 2025? Stick with me and let's find out. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to skim the surface. Look at the culture. What were people watching? What were they tweeting about? Then we'll zoom out and look at the day's big headlines. After that, we are going to dive deep into the most detailed file in the bunch, this report on cybersecurity. And finally, we'll step back and ask, what does this all mean for us right now? All right, part one, the cultural landscape. These first few files give us a little snapshot of the entertainment and the online chatter. The everyday stuff that kind of sets the mood. So, according to a Time Out article we found dated December 19th, 2025, this is what was big. And it's a wild list. You've got a Paul Thomas Anderson action movie starring Leo DiCaprio, which was supposedly the best movie of the year. You gotta wonder what that even looks like, right? Then there's a Jordan Peele-produced sports horror called Him, and a zombie comedy set in the drag scene. Seems like mashing up genres was still very much the thing to do. And check this out. This is what was trending on X, or whatever it was called then, on that exact same day. What's so fascinating here is the absolute chaos of the global conversation. You've got a Japanese TV show right next to the entire country of Bangladesh. You've got Friday in Arabic next to a serious economic issue in Japan about the yen depreciating. And then, sandwiched right between the Christmas classic, Home Alone, and other pop culture stuff is nuclear possession remarks. I mean, if that's not a perfect snapshot of social media, I don't know what is. Okay, now let's see how all that social media noise fits into the bigger picture. We're moving from the trending topics to the front page. We have a file from the Indian Express dated December 17th, 2025, and it gives us a much better sense of what was actually happening in the world. We start with some really great news, something positive on the cultural front. A Hindi film called Homebound is in the running for an Oscar. This is that feel-good headline, right? A moment of national pride that gets everyone talking. But right alongside that celebration, there's this heavy dose of economic anxiety. The Indian rupee is hitting a record low. And that's not just some abstract number on a screen. That's a headline that directly impacts millions of people's savings, the cost of food, everything. And then the tone just shifts completely. A tragic story from overseas, an act of violence that crosses borders and brings this really somber human cost to the day's headlines. It's a stark reminder of how connected and how vulnerable we all are. And this is just a perfect example of how complex modern life is. You've got one of the biggest sports stars on the planet, Lionel Messi, at an event in Delhi, but the story isn't even about him. It's about local politics clashing with a massive environmental crisis, air quality, all playing out in public. It's celebrity, politics, and public anger all rolled into one. So you're starting to see the picture, right? A world just humming along with its usual mix of good news, bad news, and celebrity distractions. But the most important file in this whole collection suggests something else was going on, something much bigger, happening almost completely out of sight. And here we go. This is the core of our little time capsule. It's a huge feature from InfoSecurity magazine, published on December 16th, 2025. It's basically a year in review of cyber warfare, and honestly, the picture it paints is pretty alarming. The article just lays out this relentless timeline of major attacks. I mean, look at this. February, a huge crypto heist. April, a massive hack wave hits major retailers. July and August, critical software from SharePoint and Salesforce gets exploited. September, Jaguar Land Rover gets hit. October, Oracle. This wasn't just one bad day. It was a constant, rolling crisis hitting the very foundations of the global economy. The report uses this very specific term to describe what was happening, a systemic cyber event. And this is a really crucial idea to grasp. We are not talking about just one company getting hacked. We're talking about an attack so big that it sends shockwaves through an entire industry, maybe even an entire country's economy. And to put that into perspective, just look at this number, the Jaguar Land Rover hack in September. That didn't just hurt one company. The UK's Cyber Monitoring Centre estimated the total hit to the British economy was nearly £2 billion from one single incident. And the article really stresses this point. The goal wasn't always just a quick financial score. The real strategic target was the global supply chain, that invisible web of software and services that literally everything we use relies on. You disrupt that, and you cause way more damage. This is a perfect illustration of that ripple effect. The attack on Salesforce customers spread through a single compromised app from a third party. And just look at the victims. These are not small-time players. These are some of the biggest names in tech, in cybersecurity, in luxury goods, all exposed because of one weak link in that chain. Info Security Magazine sums it up pretty bluntly with this line. They really weren't holding back. In their expert opinion, 2025 was a year unlike any other when it came to the scale and just the sheer audacity of these digital attacks. So, what do we do with all this? We've seen the culture, we've seen the headlines, and we've seen this hidden digital war. What's the real takeaway from this peek into a future that is, for us, just around the corner? This slide really puts it all together. On one side, you have the visible world, from our data cache, the new movies, the social media buzz, the celebrity news. You know, the stuff that fills up our feeds every day. And on the other side, you have this invisible world that was revealed in that one security report. Systemic cyber events, record-breaking data breaches, and full-blown attacks on the global supply chain. Two completely different realities happening at the exact same time. The conclusion you can't really avoid here is that these fragments show a world largely focused on the immediate, the entertaining, all while its digital foundations were quietly being torn apart. It's a classic case of nobody noticing the storm brewing because everyone was busy watching something else. So, maybe that's the crucial point here. The story of our world is never just one thing. It's not just the big cultural moments, and it's not just the terrifying technical reports. It's both, always happening side by side. The real trick is figuring out where we should be paying attention. We managed to piece this entire story together from a few digital fragments left behind in a possible future. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? If someone, a year from now, were to look back at the digital trail we are creating right now, today, what story would they tell about us?